We are now going to have a conversation about labor and workforce. You know, every time we have Labor Day, the one thing that you hear is that workers are waiting to hear whether there's going to be an increase to the minimum wage. This year, the headlines are big. Legal hitch dims workers' hopes of Ruto raising pay. Because there was no minimum wages council that discusses and proposes to the president the minimum wage, there's all likelihood that the president may not announce anything about minimum wage today. Okay, so what is this minimum wage, and does it help in this country? Does it work? That's why now we are joined by two workers. One is Brother Isaac Andabwa. He's the National General Secretary of the National Private Security Workers Union, and he's here with his employer. Fredrick Isiaho Kamonya is a guard and a member of the union, and he works for KK. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, viewers.
Karibuni sana to Kenya's biggest conversation. Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day to you too.
Brother Isaac, you've been here before.
Yes.
Fredrick is the one who hasn't been here before. Karibu sana, Fredrick.
Thank you so much.
We call that the hot seat of Kenya's biggest conversation. You make yourself comfortable and enjoy. To welcome you, CT Muga has the day's proverb.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Togo.
Mm-hmm.
Togo is one of the smallest countries on this continent. You know, this is the beauty of a country. To be a country, you don't need to be big. You just need to be a country, and you're a country. Yes, so whether you're the third largest, third smallest, doesn't really matter. You're a country, and your people are the citizens of your country. Yes. The proverb is as follows. It is better to walk than to curse the road.
It is better to walk than to curse the road.
Yes.
It's better to walk than to curse it.
Yes, you are on the road, you are walking, okay? If the road is muddy, it's still the road. If the road is rocky, it's still the road. If there are many bends and curves, it's still the road. If it's straight, stop complaining. Why is this road so straight? Walk.
Isaac, what do you think the Togolese were saying in this proverb? What's your interpretation of it?
I think I can relate it to what somebody told me yesterday, that it's good to have a bad government than to have none. So that you don't complain that this is a bad government. Maybe if you can make a comparison to Sudan, what is happening there. You see now people in Sudan are having a lot of problems because they have none government. So that is what my brother is talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Work with the government. Stop complaining. Fredrick, what's your interpretation?
I think it's quite clear that despite all the challenges we are facing in the country as a government, with the current government, and also the high cost of life, or rather living, all in all, we have to ensure that we just have to work and live and move on with the situation, because the situation should not make us get stuck. What is there is that as we encounter these hard circumstances, that's the right time to strategize on how to move on with the situation and achieve what we have to as a whole, and that is life.
So time to face the challenges.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, our conversation today is with regards to, of course, what we expect every Labor Day, the issue of minimum wage. First of all, Isaac, for many people who don't understand, what is minimum wage and why is it so important? Why is it that all unionists wait for this Labor Day, for this major announcement to be made?
I think according to my interpretation of the minimum wage, is that which the government gives to the lowly paid worker in a particular country in order to cushion them from that skyrocketing bargaining power of commodities and services. And also for us as trade unions or labor leaders, the minimum wage gives a room, the basic on how to engage on other terms and conditions of employment, like collective bargaining agreement. You know, that is an entry point. Without the minimum wage, and then it becomes a very serious challenge to any union to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement. So in summary, minimum wage is a guideline, and at the same time, there are people who don't belong to any union. It protects the workers, those ones of a low cadre in terms of who don't have even the union. So the minimum wage is across the board, whether you are in a member of trade union or you are not. That is meant to protect the lowly paid workers in a particular country, as well as an entry point for negotiations of better pay and services.
Right. So when we're talking about minimum wage, we're talking about what exactly comes into your pocket as a worker. And a wage obviously is something that you are paid.
Yeah.
So we're saying at the barest minimum, whatever it is that you do, the work that you do, the barest minimum set by a country is said amount. I believe in Kenya it is 14,800 and something, just about 15,000.
It's around 15,000.
Yes.
700 something.
Yes, something there, right?
Yeah.
So what we're saying essentially is that at the minimum in Kenya, this is what you should earn.
Yeah.
Money coming into your pocket, right?
Yes.
Oftentimes, a day like this rolls around and everybody's hoping that the minimum wage will be raised. So that at the very minimum, you're getting this, based on what you're saying now, is an entry point to allow other conversations to start happening so that you can now talk about other benefits that you will get, maybe some health here, living allowance, transport allowance, etc., etc. Those who receive the minimum wage and those who pay it out, how, from what you see, has there been adherence to paying of minimum wage? I may have a bit of an answer, but have you seen across board that people who should be earning this minimum wage actually earn this amount of 15,700 shillings?
Yeah, my senior sister can say in Kenya, maybe before I come to your question or concerns, you have just seen the headlines on news papers. Somebody's trying to argue that today we might not, or the workers might not benefit from the said minimum wages because they have not consulted some individuals somewhere who are in public office. They have not taken time to consult over this very important increment. That is a lapse in the first place. Now, to come to your question, I want to be specifically to my industry, that is the private security industry. Those minimum wages have been there time and again, but we have a serious problem in terms of enforcement of the same. There is one thing to announce or give that guideline of wages, and there is another thing to enforce, to make sure everybody, that class that is supposed to benefit, has benefited across the board. I can be here and confidently say my industry, that is private security workers, have really suffered because they have never been benefiting that minimum wage, despite several announcements, several regimes here and there. And it has been a very serious challenge to me as the National General Secretary. Now, I can confidently say from 2,000 security employers or investors in the country, I can tell you out of the 2,000, we have had only around 5 companies that have been almost to the minimum wage guidelines. But the rest, 1,900 something, they have really gave me a lot of problems and challenges in terms of implementing or complying with the minimum wage.
What does that mean?
So I can say clearly
that they pay people less than the 15,000.
Yeah, the challenges are so many. Like the company like KKWA comes from, and the Jeffries, Wells Fargo, those are foreign owned security companies. But most of the culprit in terms of implementation and the compliance, they're indigenous Kenyans. Now, when somebody is not paying minimum wage, it means he's stealing. From not only the worker, he's also stealing from the government, because the threshold of paying KRA is something above 13,000, and the policy governing the KRA, you cannot be taxed when you are paying less than 13. So most of the employers in this industry, they have been evading the KRA, NSSF, NHF, etc. They pay below that which the government requires to attract the taxation. So according to me, there is a lot that we need to do as Kenyans and even the government itself, because the government cannot always every year talking about minimum wage and nobody is trying to enforce the same from same government. Now, if the government cannot enforce its own law in terms of compliance of minimum wage, now what do we expect from the same government? Therefore, I want to answer my sister and say, we have achieved, despite the fact we have had these minimum wages year in, year out, we have not actually benefited from those minimum wage. Because if we can get an average of 5 companies from 2,000, then you can see where the members are, you see, in terms of that minimum wage compliance.
5 companies out of 2,000 have complied with paying each of the employees the minimum wage at the least.
Out of the 2,000 registered companies that are operating in this country, less than 6 are the ones who are complying. And you know the government is there. The officers of the government are there. They're the ones who enforce the minimum wage, and they're doing nothing. So they have left many members in the industry, like in the private security, still suffering. Even I was having an argument, and I think again I also want to come up with another issue, observation. Some of these minimum wages are also irrelevant in terms of the current scenario. You see, when the minister comes and says that 15,000, the 15% of that basic pay is going to be paid to determine the house, the house allowance, which is like between 1,500 and 2,000. That is totally irrelevant to the current situation. In areas like slums like Kibera, Mukurukwanjenga, Madare, Kangemi, Kangware, where my members stay in those suburbs. I'm a shanty, I'm a bat house between 10 and 10. It attracts around 6,000, to 4,000. Yeah. So what is the relevance of 2,000?
House allowance of 2,000.
Yes, and that one is coming from the minister. So you see, there is something wrong somewhere. That is why I'm saying we need to have what we call my campaign is a research-based minimum wage that is relevant.
Fredrick, let me ask you, how involved are those who work in the sector in, some of this agitation that we are talking about here, to say that, okay, they've been talking about, I'm sure you've heard the conversation year in, year out. Yeah. I'm not sure how long you've worked in the sector, but you've heard it every year. Come April 30th, April 15th, people are saying, come the 1st of May, we might hear something. Have you seen that it has gotten better? Just from what you've seen, have you seen that it has gotten better, or are we still having the same kind of conversation from people that you've spoken to, your colleagues, etc.?
The truth, madam, the truth is that so far, ever since the issue of minimum wage has been addressed, so far I can say not much has been done. Because as my boss said earlier, there are only a few companies that have
He says you're his boss.
He said you're the
It's
boss.
the other way around.
Yeah, it's opposite. He's
Is my boss when it comes to hierarchy of the organization, I mean.
Okay.
So exactly what he has said, I'll only support it, because to some level, just a few companies have complied. That's for instance, the one I'm working for, KK, and other companies like G4S, Wells Fargo, they are the only ones that have complied. And you can see they are foreign-owned companies. But our local companies that are the ones to support the Kenyans at large, they have not complied. I can assure you, I have not seen anything positive on that issue of minimum wage.
And do folks talk about these things, or are folks afraid of losing their jobs so they don't bring up the issue? Because, think about it. The president, on many occasions, will stand before a crowd of people and say that because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we are now raising the minimum wage from this to this, isn't it? I think it has progressed over the years. 7,000 has gone to 8,000 by 14%, this, right? So now government has said you must.
Yeah.
Do we see that people are involved in talking to...
Do the workers know or understand?
Do they understand that this government has said, the president has said it must happen?
Actually, madam, maybe let me speak a little, then my boss answers that question. We are not given that chance, and that's why we have the union. The union actually speaks on behalf of us.
Yes.
Because that issue of minimum wage, we've talked earlier that before, just 5 years back, that issue was not even addressed. But when the union came in, the issue of the union came in, this organization, the union came in, that's when it added this grievance, and something has been done on these the few companies that he has mentioned, foreign owned, KK and the other, but the local ones have not. That's why the union is there, and that's why he's really emphasizing on that issue, because that is what should be done without the local companies. Just the same way the foreign owned companies, their few has done.
I'd like to ask some questions.
Yes, please.
Now, when one engages a security company, you engage them on the understanding that they will provide you with security guards, and there's an amount that you pay them. Is this amount standard across all the security companies that are there?
That's a good question, my brother, but some questions are more difficult for him to answer. He says clearly when I came in, you see there was nobody who knew about the private security industry and their role. Before we go to talk about the issue of the rates and so forth, we need to understand first what is the role of the private security officer in the current scenario. You see, a private security officer, wherever they are, they complement national security agencies. They play a very vital role in terms of security of the country. And we have gone back to what we used to call the regulation, the Private Security Regulation Authority. So that mandate of rates, that mandate of regulating the employer and regulating the card and the industry in general, it is the mandate of the Private Security Regulation Authority. And that is why most of us, we had hope. When I took over the mantle, I formed the Kenya National Private Security Workers Union. My agenda was reform. And the best way you can reform a particular industry is by having that institution to regulate. So we played our role as a union. We made a lot of noise until we had the regulation in place. So what we are asking is this. If the regulation is there, which is supposed to regulate those standards, those rates, and make sure protect the interest of the cars as well as protect the interest of the employers, what happened? That's the question. Why is it that the same things, same challenges are still there, and that office is there and functioning? Now, that if you have a security company, the same to loan, and maybe madam, and when you go to bid for the contract, as he says, you give 22,000, and the loan gives maybe 30 or 40, and madam gives 15. Then tomorrow, and there is this very punitive laws that states the lowest bidder carries the day. Now, you find the government, the same government has given madam, who is demanding 15,000.
Yeah.
How will madam now manage the overtime of the cards from the same, NSSF, NIHF, and the basic minimum wage? You see? So the first culprit in this scenario is the government. Because when you talk about the regulations, it's the government which is supposed to regulate. And you cannot be giving people who cannot afford the minimum wage, who are not giving revenue to the government, tenders. You can look around. Even without going far, you can do your own research. The Supreme Court of the Republic of Kenya, where is the face of the justice in the Republic of Kenya? Who is guarding that institution? Does that employer pay minimum wage? No. You can also go to the office where the CS that is expected to announce the minimum wage today. That is NSF. Who is cutting that NSF? Is that card who is cutting there getting minimum wage? No. So what is the problem? The problem is there are people comfortably sitting in the office with the mandate and doing nothing to safeguard the interest of the poor. Just like when I had somebody telling the other day, the Shakahola incident, or that massacre, some individuals, now they were reading into Ezekiel and the pastors and the Mackenzies. And somebody is not asking, in this country we have a structure whereby we complement the national security agents. Somebody is not asking where was the Nyumbakumi. Somebody is not asking where is the sub-chief of that area. Somebody is not asking where is the elder, a village elder of that area. Somebody is not asking where is the SEC, all that team. So in Kenya, even if God gives us a beautiful law today, guys are here not taking care, not having any interest of implementing that law. So they do contrary. They do contrary.
Wait,
and you know,
wait.
Yes.
Andabwa. When City asked
yes,
whether there people a bid for the same, and you've clearly explained,
yes,
of course it's not, right?
Yes.
But you mentioned regulations.
Yeah.
Is there a regulation that says the minimum that a security company should charge for its services?
You cannot protect the interest. So I told you the minimum wage is supposed to protect the lowly paid worker.
Okay.
But you know, the minimum wage gives us a room to negotiate.
Yeah.
Like for example, we have a union. Our union, we have had a CBA with the G4S and the KK. Those are foreign owned companies. So I told you, minimum wage gives the threshold. You don't need to go below.
You cannot
so
go below.
I'm asking a question. Most of the institutions I've mentioned in SSF is where the minister sits every day. That is his office. I've also asked you to take a look to the Supreme Court, which all of us expect justice from that institution. I'm asking you go and do a revisit. Are those guys cutting those institutions complying with the minimum wage? Obviously no, according to my research. Then how do we handle this situation? If the government itself, which is supposed to protect the workers, is again the one doing contrary to its own laws, it's very ridiculous. So I'm telling Kenya there is something wrong. We might have beautiful laws in this country, but lack of enforcement is a big issue.
That's where our problem is. Our problem
like
is
now we fought so hard. We made sure, my sister, we have taken a lot of tea in all these hotels across the country doing what we call lobbying for the Private Security Regulation Authority, because that was our ultimate goal. You see, after taking all the teas all over, the regulation is there, it's doing nothing. What do we do now?
Go to court.
Yes. Maybe now you wait for Jesus to come.
City, you had a series of questions.
I did actually. When I look at this discussion, when I listen to this discussion about minimum wage, something about it always disturbs me. Because every year there is, on Labor Day specifically, there's some 15%. Now my concern is at two levels. When you say 15% and someone was earning 5,000 shillings, just for an example, how much money have you actually given this person?
650.
15%.
Yeah,
650 on top of
exactly.
5,000.
So if you earn that amount of money, how much does it actually change in terms of what it is that you're going to do with your life? Okay, but even double that amount again and still add the same 10-15%. My concern has been this: every time the government talks about giving people more money in terms of benefits, they're actually not, because the reason why the money is given is so that one is able to afford to live. Now, affording to live is based on whether you can actually buy what you need. And these workers don't determine the price of these things that they need. The government has the ability, has the means, and actually has the power to ensure that these things that people buy cost less. You have a budget, you have all these ministries that are supposed to ensure that these things are affordable for the citizens. So, if indeed the government wants people to afford a living, then ought the conversation not be, how do we ensure that people can actually afford? So that instead of saying you keep giving people every year an increase, can you then say, for instance, every Labor Day, for the benefit of the workers, that the price of, say, unga is now 40 shillings. So this individual who earns 15,000 can actually afford to buy, instead of one packet of unga, can afford to buy two, because you've reduced the price of unga. Can you then not say, for instance, that we are going to reduce the price of fuel? What I'm saying is, the things that make the lives of the citizens and those who are paid the least in our society is not made better by giving them 10, 15% increment on the monies that they're already earning, which are already low. What you do is you keep increasing the inflation cost, because what you're doing is, yes, there's money, but the goods that the money is chasing are fewer. So the prices, oddly enough, instead of reducing it, you're going to actually, the very thing you say you're going to reduce, you actually increase it and raise it.
So you're saying raising minimum wage raises inflation?
Oh, yes, it most definitely does. It contributes to it significantly.
Okay. But how about looking at it from the other angle of you're raising the minimum wage to meet the inflation, like an inflation adjustment?
It works if the things that you're supposed to buy with that money, the supply increases, then you'll be able to afford more. If what you're supposed to buy, that particular production does not increase, then that increase is a complete waste of time. It does not benefit you directly.
Maybe I want to chip in, and I think my senior brother is really reflecting my concerns. Me, despite the fact of being a labor leader, and I want to appreciate Dr. Atwoli's the way he has supported the cause of the workers in the Republic of Kenya and the concerns. But from where I sit, I don't support that minimum wage at all. Why? There's some factors that is raising. You know, what is the essence of giving 1,500, 1,500 to somebody who's paying the Mashandi Babati house in Kangware 6,000? What are you doing with that guy? You see? So that's what I'm saying. My mind, from where I sit, I advocate for what we call a research-based minimum wage. You need to look around the services, the commodities. Then when the government comes to announce the minimum wage, it becomes irrelevant, the minimum wage. But what we are seeing now, this is not relevant, the minimum wage. Even if you double the way it says 4 times, it cannot work. Why? We have left our members very much disillusioned. They can't compensate the pocket-wise in terms of with so many taxation, you know, and a lot of, even some cars are starving. My members are starving on the gates. And it's a very bad situation. You know, in Kenya, it is good for us all, but everyone for himself. Yes. So long as me have eaten ugali today, and I've eaten, I've taken tea, breakfast, I don't care what happened to the neighbor. So, like the private security industry, their role is very vital. These cards are supporting and complementing the national security agents. And there is nobody who is working who remained under assignment, whether it's in an industrial unga factory, where it's in construction for 12 exact hours. You see? So the cards remain strategically on assignment. But when it comes to compensation, even overtime, it's not there. When you go to the issues of insurance, it's not there. So, my brother Latif, this minimum wage must be revisited. Does it add value to the commoners, the lowly paid work?
You want it to be research based?
Yes, my advocacy is that minimum wage will only make sense when it is relevant.
Who advises the cabinet secretary?
You know, you have just read the
Wages Council.
It is under the tripartite arrangement, whereby this is labor, the employer and the government.
Yes.
So we are being told that committee has never sat. You see, and yet we are talking about Labor Day. We are telling workers to celebrate. So we want to celebrate that which is not there in the first place. So if that committee has never sat, you see, then we expect nothing from that committee, and which means it is not working. And if it is not working, that tripartite committee, it means those ones who are supposed to benefit from that arrangement, they'll remain exposed.
What I want to understand is,
yes,
the day that it sat and advised the cabinet secretary and the president on the minimum wage, was it research based?
No.
Does the council? What does the council use to determine what it advises the president?
You know, traditionally, the minimum wage has been tied to the 1st May. When we go for workers' celebration, and of course the celebrations of today is not just in Kenya, it is an international holiday.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, until we do a research-based minimum wage, we are not assisting the workers in the Republic of Kenya, because we might announce things that are not relevant to them. Like I'm telling you specifically, house, it normally captures rent for that minimum wage. It talks about 1,500 or 15% of the basic. And when you go to Kebera and Kangwara and Kangemi, it is totally opposite. They cannot. Even if you increase maybe 100 times percent, it cannot work. So you might think you are doing that which is expected by the workers, and you are totally off, and you are losing touch with the same workers, because what you are talking is not
practical.
It's not practical. Yes.
So you, as a union leader,
yes,
when you say that you are opposed to minimum wage,
yes,
what do you want instead?
I'm not opposed to minimum wage. Get me clear. I'm saying minimum wage is good, but it must be a research-based word. Minimum wage. For example, maybe to reiterate so that you understand me.
Yes.
Do you have minimum wage supermarkets in this Republic of Kenya? Do you have minimum wage hospitals? Do you have minimum wage transport system in the Republic of Kenya? So are we talking about minimum wage?
Okay,
and I'm going to the same supermarket with the CS of Labor. I'm going to the same supermarket with the governor of Nairobi. Are we fair to these people, the cats, who are paid peanuts?
Okay, so if I can understand what you're saying a little bit broader here.
Yes.
And we're saying, for example, if you're saying that it must be research-based minimum wage, and if you want people to afford a certain type of thing, you say, okay, like housing is between 4,000 and 6,000 shillings.
Yes.
Okay. If you want to afford the basic of vegetables and unga and this and that, you're going to need at least 5,000 shillings per month.
Yeah.
If your children are to go to school and the things that they need, you're going to need at least another 5,000, 7,000 shillings a month. You're saying make an increment of pay based on having done
all these
kind of research.
Perfect.
But what do they do? That's what I'm asking.
I don't want to know
we
what
have
they
had
do,
a
because we
council.
are not in the wages council. We are telling you what I think can work. Those ones who are
You're saying it's not research based.
Yes, what I'm saying is exactly what the madam is saying.
Yes.
You know what? Why should you give me?
But what do they use?
What do they use?
I don't know. Maybe the question you ask the FKA and the tripartite. Me, I'm not there. What I'm saying, exactly what she's saying. Why should you give me 200 shillings? To go 100 shillings?
To go and pay
to go and buy you unga. Whereas in the market, the unga is 250. What do we want to do to 100 shillings? Yes, we are not honest. We are not practical. Yeah, and that's why many of our workers are suffering. And even the commoners are also suffering, because we are talking language that is not at the level. And I wanted to challenge the president, because he's the president of the hustler. There's no way you can say you are running a government of hustler when you don't consider the issue of the private security, who are the hustler number one. You remember, we have now a task force, namely the Maraka task force, looking into what?
Police
issues. We have had several upgrading task force within the police.
Yeah.
And this one may be the sixth since Kibaki time. Now, have you had any president or CS talking about the private security? Why can't we? Because we complement national security agents. We complement the police. Why were we left out in this, Maraka? You can see what I'm trying to address. And you know, the security of this country, around 80%, is in the hands of who?
Private.
Not the police. Police are hardly 100,000. But the private security are around 800 to 1 million with the several dependents. And you know, the most of them, I'm sorry to say this, most of these cards, they come from Western Province, where I come from. Their breakfast is ugali, the lunch is ugali, and the supper is ugali. You know, and if the unga is 250, you can do the mathematics. He needs around 1,000
per day.
per day.
2 packets of
A day, yes. And you know, God has also blessed the Luyas. They normally reproduce, have a lot of children around. So when you don't do experiment with these guys in the name of gods, and when you talk about giving 1 packet of unga, which is hardly there, what are you doing to them? I was about to say, maybe we need to get something like a task force in the private security, so that they can come up with the proper salary, but not the issue of minimum wage, because it has never worked. I've gone to court. I've had several meetings with the head of judiciary, myself, and I can tell you, I'm tired. I met the deputy
Chief Justice.
Yes, I did a complaint, and I told her that time it was Madam Shole.
Registrar.
She was a registrar.
Yeah, that time, yes, she was registered there. I told her there's a problem here. If this is a Supreme Court and it is paying, it's not a complying to minimum wage, then where are we as a country? And this is the face of who? Government, justice.
You know, brother, as you mentioned minimum wage, there's a cadre of employee in this country who helps paint that picture even clearer. It's called house help. Because these are the individuals we entrust with our children, we entrust with our belongings, we entrust them with our house. And they are probably even, should we pay, say, they probably paid even less than your security guards. So, again, if we are talking about looking after the interests of the mwananchi, wachini, as we keep saying, the things you say are absolutely accurate. Because, and I take it even further, there's something called, is it called ICD? What do you call this institutions where we train pre-primary?
ECD.
What
I was wondering what?
ECD.
ECD. ICD ni hapa, hiyo ECD.
Unasema nursery.
Nursery.
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten, early childhood education. Ndio hiyo development ya education. Okay? These are the individuals who ensure that your child actually walks, talks, knows how to socialize. The very first words they start uttering and learning to read and write, it is them. But look at how they are paid. And look at how that particular sector of employee is managed. Take it to the primary level where now they take over and help this child develop. By the time the child gets to secondary school, that child already knows very many things and they can do things for themselves. But again, the way the salary is structured, the ones whom we need to honor the most are the ones who are paid the least. And it works that way up.
Yeah.
So when you say there's something, I would argue it's systemic. There's something wrong with our thinking. Forget the system. With our thinking in terms of who we ought to value more and so reward in terms of salary more. This guard looks after you. When it rains, the sun shines, they're there. You acknowledge because they opened the gate. And if something goes wrong, they're the first to be blamed. In fact, they're the ones whom the police come and pick up.
Very true.
So now, you ask yourself, if this individual who's supposed to protect your life is not well looked after, how safe is your life really?
Maybe to pick from where you are.
Yes.
That is purely my argument. You know, we are still married and twinned into the colonial mind as we are talking. You know, you can, when you're outside there, somebody will say, who in watchman? You see those kind of name. You see, who in watchman? Hata mimi wananiambianga hii mkubwa ya watchman. I really feel irritated because some of these names carry some kind of luggage, you know, and the way he's saying, you can think about a maid, think about a house girl, think about a cleaner, think about the private security officer. Those are the people who actually protect the lives of many clients. And you see the input in terms of the work and working hours, very enormous, as it says. So for me, leave alone even giving them huge salary. What I'm talking about, domestic workers. These are house girl, maid,
The gardener.
gardener, cleaner, and even the private security officer. Those people, we need to respect them. And we need an overhaul of these colonial terminologies which give negative attitudes to those particular serious workers. Like in Europe and maybe outside the Sungu countries, they respect a maid. They respect the house girl. They respect a cook. You see, and they respect a private security officer. But here in Kenya, when they say we watch do, they take us like second-hand citizen. And the city ulisema kwamba kazi ni kazi. And we were talking about professionalization of the industry, the way he's saying. You see, but Kenyans leadership don't want to hear. until now you become irrelevant. You have a lot of idea, you have a lot of vision, you have a lot of passion for your people, you become wasted. You see? So, if we think the way my brother is thinking, nobody will look at a maid as a useless person. Nobody will look at a cook like a useless person, because they play very important role. They are number one worker. You can imagine, maybe you don't know our linkage. You see, a private security officer is the border. I don't know if you know that. Baada kutoka kazini asubuhi ama mjana ama jioni, ameona kwamba hii pesa hii haiwezi toka unga, ndio anaenda kuchukua loan ya motorbike, anaenda kwa barabara kusupplement. People don't know. Then ule mama mboga ambao tulikuwa tunaambiwa na serikali ya Hasla, huyo ni bibi yetu ama dada wetu kwa Kawangware, ndio anauza mboga na Kebera. You see the linkage? Yes. Then when we work at a particular assignment kwa mzungu ama ni wapi, ujue kwamba huyu maid na huyu cook, huyu house girl, those are relatives, because mimi ndio nachukua bibi yangu because huwezi kumanage kusupplement my family, na peleka bibi yangu wapi? Hapo. So when I talk about a private security officer, I'm talking about those lowly paid workers, including what he's saying.
There are many more people.
The cleaner. The government
gardener.
must overhaul these punitive laws that we found them existing in this country, so that we can look at the wages that is relevant. Kama hao wanapata shilingi 7,000 and they stay in Nairobi. Are we normal? Are we something wrong with us? Yes.
How much? How much? I want to start with you, Fredrick.
When you go to the minimum wage, they are saying at transport ya kutoka Nairobi, huyu akienda leave, akienda Kakamega kule Shabaho, apatiwe shilingi 1,000 transport. Are we? That is the CS of Labor is talking that, as per the previous minimum wage guidelines. That is totally wrong. So we leaders, we are living in a different world, and the commoners, the poor the hustlers are in a different world. Fredrick. I was thinking, I was looking up to the president, and I know he has a good heart. The way he came in the leadership, he was really addressing my constituency.
I want to ask Fredrick.
And I said,
I want to ask, hold on.
Jesus has come through William.
I want to ask Fredrick.
Our president.
Yes, Fredrick, how much in the minimum should a guard be paid, in your opinion?
That one, I cannot answer it in terms of the exact figure.
Look at yourself. Look at your needs.
My needs,
right?
I think
on a monthly basis.
How long have you been in this work?
7 years.
Precisely. So you are the right person to ask that question. Now answer.
Based on how much you spend.
It's my wish actually that if the minimum wage could be even 25,000, because the cost of living is too high. Imagine I'm a guard. I have to educate my child. And the education my child has to get is the best one, because you know the current in the current world there is a competition. So to enable this child to compete with
everybody else.
You see, you have to provide. She or he has to get the best education.
That's true.
For her or him to get that best education, money is required. No school is for free.
Sure.
Although we are used to this song that there is free education in Kenya, but there is no free education in Kenya. We dig deep in pockets for that education. Number two, life generally. What, for instance, the president eats is what I'm supposed to eat, because it is, at the end of the day, it's food.
Yes.
So I don't think kama ile duka yeye anaenda bei ni tofauti na mimi. The base that's the same. So basing on that, actually you find that mtu kama mimi askari wa kawaida, life is cumbersome.
So 25,000.
25,000 is better.
Would be what would make you comfortable.
Yeah,
At
that
least
should be basic.
begin.
That is basic.
And then now we add the other allowances.
And then we add the overtime, the issue of overtime and the whatsoever.
And
it can make it. They want to be in cry. Yeah, they want to be in cry.
Actually, they will be. Once you get used to the 25, you'll feel 30 is better. When you get 30, you'll feel 35 is better. But then there's nothing wrong with that. That's really my point. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong.
You see, my brothers and sister, it is workable. It can be done.
25 can be done.
Yes, it can be done. Why? what you should do, because you saw this is a private. Yeah, if you know that you cannot afford to have a card at your gate, then forget about it. Don't do experiment with the human life. The regulator is supposed to say, in order for you to benefit, like myself, I'm paying a KK card at my office.
Yeah.
Yes, I want that card him to get that which is required by law. So I'm giving 45 rates to KK.
To KK.
Because I want I want my card to have the best.
Yeah.
Now, it is just something that the regulator can wake up and say, for you to enjoy this service, make sure you pay 50,000 for a car. It will compensate all those things. Yeah. The first CBA collective bargaining agreement, which I gave to the American embassy. American embassy currently, a card is earning around 70,000 through the CBA, which I did myself. You know? So, if you want to be protected by a private security officer, then you need to make that card to be comfortable. You see? That's why I'm saying in Kenya, we have a problem. We might have the best of laws in the Republic of Kenya, but when it comes to enforcement, it becomes a serious issue. You don't know what happened along the way. The other day, you had 2 cars were killed in Kisumu.
Yeah.
And we have had several killings of the cars. And the number is supersede the one for Shakahola. Yes. But nobody's talking about it. And they are dying while on the line of what?
Duty.
That is why we said we must have a reform agenda in the private security industry to professionalize the industry, to have an academy. And you know, when you have an academy, you will train the cars, you will export labor, the government will get revenue. You see, people don't want to reason. They want to take us around circles
the big
and the same problems recurring. That is serious.
Brother,
yes.
Asante sana.
Let me just
as you conclude,
let me just put stress on what my boss has said. You know, these are just some of the challenges the security guards face, isn't it? There are so many like those people who escort money or cash transit. You know, you can't tell me that you'll encounter those gangsters with the guns and you have a rungu.
There are many issues.
You are actually exporting money. There are so many issues.
We'll invite you again.
The government has to do something.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Fredrick Isiaho is a guard with KK, and Brother Isaac Andabwa is the National General Secretary of the Private Security Workers Union. Asante sana, gentlemen, for being with us.